Hello, good evening, and welcome to tonight's edition of Daily Record Hotline Live. Myself, Keith Jackson. I'm joined, as you can see, by Scott McDermott. I've also caught up with Mick Gannon and Craig Swan, who are over in Rotterdam for ahead of Celtic's Europa League tie with Feyenoord. This, of course, is the day that once again Wilfred Nosey moved a step closer to Celtic. This deal seems to be taking an eternity, but it's almost there. It feels like, as what I go into a conversation with Craig and Michael, it's clearly just a matter now of dotting I's, crossing T's. But there seems to be every chance that Wilfred Nance could be at Easter Road on Sunday to at least watch Celtic in person for the first time. So that's all moving closer. And of course, Scott, it's the day after the Ibrox boardroom bloodbath. We haven't had your thoughts on that. Is that the war over? I mean, it's obviously been unhappy times at both of Glasgow's big clubs between the fans and the board and various others. Is that it? Is that the war over at Ibrox?
Will the war ever be over in Glasgow when it comes to those? Just when you think it's a quiet day, all hell breaks loose. No, look, I think Rangers fans will probably feel that Christmas has come early for them because the removal of Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart, as much as clearly the majority of fans, if not all of them, wanted it, I'm not sure too many expected it. Expected it so soon, so quick.
Did you expect it?
I didn't, mate. No, I must admit. I mean, I'd be lying because I think I was on here a few weeks ago and I was saying, I think a lot of people were talking then about, Kevin Thelwell can he get another transfer window? And I was making the point, well, he is, because at that point, I think it was just after Danny Rowe got appointed, Andrew Kavanagh had completely backed Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart. So it seemed at that point as if, he was definitely going to get another transfer window. As well as that, I think we spoke about it at the time. Well, Kevin Thelwell's been allowed to build this kind of empire, or was allowed to build this kind of empire around about him in terms of his men, guys that he knew, Dan Purdy, Nathan Fisher, his own son, Robbie. It's only a matter of days ago that Kevin Thelwell was no doubt rubber stamping another guy that he knew, John Hunter Barrett, getting in as academy director. So that's why, look, Rangers have ultimately, they've got to the right decision. And I read your piece, on Andrew Kavanagh, and quite rightly saying he does deserve credit for showing strong leadership. I think he had to, before it went on too much longer. But I do think the timing of it is slightly strange and also does raise a lot of questions. For a start, what happens to all these guys that I've mentioned? These kind of Kevin Thelwell disciples, if you like. Do they stay in situ, or does he have to go and the club need to try and get rid of these guys gradually over time as well? What happens in the January transfer window? Is a new sporting director coming in to lead that, or will Danny Rowe be given license to go and bring in his own men? I think there's a lot of questions still to be answered at Rangers after these departures, even though I do feel it's definitely the right decision.
Yeah, look, we'll come back to that later, Scott, a little bit later in the programme. The one thing that I would say at this point, do you know what I find really weird about the timing of it, and I think it's a good point, is he threw his lot in with Kevin Thelwell, as you said, and Patrick Stewart. At the time of the appointment of Danny Rowe, he made it clear, I'm sticking with these guys. They've got my faith and my trust. And that was at a moment in time when he'd gone into an interview process, a recruitment process to find a new manager. And we are led to believe very strongly that a big part of the reason that moves for the likes of Steven Gerrard and Kevin Muscat fell down was they were unhappy with the management structure, with having to be answerable to Kevin Thelwell, with having to allow Kevin Thelwell to completely run the recruitment side of the club. That seems strange to me, that you go through the process, you end up with a guy who doesn't make those demands, and then a couple of weeks later you sack them anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's weird. It's almost like they've put the chicken before the egg with that one.
Because if you're a fan, Jacko, you'd probably be asking, well, if we'd have done this some weeks ago, as much as Danny Rowe, I think, has had a decent start as Rangers manager, and I think he's a very good coach and might go on to prove to be a very good appointment. If you're a fan, you'd probably be asking, well, if this is how you felt, why not do this before that process started?
Yeah.
And if they had, they might have ended up.
It wasn't as if there wasn't enough reason.
Exactly, but they might have ended up with their first choice or second choice manager if that was Steven Gerrard or Kevin Muscat, as we're led to believe, and we know that they spoke to these guys. So, as I say, that's why I just find the timing strange. I know Andrew Kavanagh said, I think he said yesterday in one of his interviews, he was asked about it and basically almost kind of fudged a reasoning behind it in terms of, him and Parag Marat wanted to get the kind of football side sorted first and make sure on pitch performance had improved before they dealt with other stuff. But I'm not quite buying that. It doesn't. I don't know. There's something not quite right about that. Listen, we'll probably talk about it later on, but
yeah,
I think Danny Rose had a big influence on this in terms of what he's reported.
I know you've kind of painted him as a wee silent assassin, hatchet man, which we will come back to later. Scott, read your piece as well. Now, at this time, you've said it. Is there ever a quiet day? Will there ever be peace in our times in this city? Probably not. How does Celtic bury the hatchet with their own fans, Scott? We'll go and we'll speak to. As I said to you, I caught up with Michael and Craig over in Rotterdam earlier, but now that Rangers have actually made this move, I think there's Celtic fans that are looking at going, well, I wish our lot would do that. And then all of a sudden you could have happy days all round.
I know, I've actually seen stuff on social media. I mean, it's so rare because they're obviously normally at loggerheads with each other, but there has actually been Celtic fans saying, well, this is the way you do it, actually praising Andrew Kavanagh, the Rangers chairman, for not just making big decisions and wielding the axe, but then actually coming out publicly and explaining those decisions. Because I think if you're a Celtic fan, that concept's pretty alien, and it has been for a few years. Listen, I don't know how this is resolved. It's difficult when
It is.
When there is so much bad blood and so much tension, but there's that kind of total impasse in terms of you can't see either side moving on it. You can't see Dermot Desmond or the board moving for their position. And the Celtic fans are obviously, have been pretty kind of militant and might get even more so as the weeks and months go on to try and remove the hierarchy. It's difficult to see who budges in that kind of fight now.
Nobody's got to blink in this fight. That's the problem.
I mean. So what
they're
happens?
Both entrenched.
I mean, the only thing I can see that will soften it without ending it is, first of all, a new manager comes in, which we expect to happen pretty soon.
I don't think that'll win. I don't think that'll end this one, Scott. I think there's going to have to be a sacrifice made at boardroom level. I think Peter Lawwell's a really smart man. He'll be looking at this. He'll know that this is reaching an inevitable ending, and it's very similar to his last one as chief executive, which I think is a great shame when you consider how committed he's been for the club and how successful his tenures have been, both as chief exec and chairman. I mean, it's one of the most successful periods of the modern era. And yet he'll need to leave out the back door with his head under a blanket again. Here's Paul Brady says, I'll give Kavanagh his due. He sees he's made a mistake in appointing Thelwell and acted quickly because the league title is achievable. Celtic board have split the club and it's game on. Do you know what I think the Celtic fans would also kind of quietly be quite envious of, Scott? Is the fact that Andrew Kavanagh is obviously based in the States. He could have done the easy thing and made that decision on a Zoom call or, by putting out a statement. The fact that I think he was giving the Rangers fans their due a little bit by saying, no, this is important. I need to be front and centre. I need to take ownership of it. I need to get myself to Glasgow. I need to put myself in front of people to answer questions. All the sort of things that Dermot Desmond simply stubbornly refuses to do at Celtic. And it's a really interesting contrast just now.
I think you're right. And I totally agree. Andrew Kavanagh didn't need to be back in Glasgow to make that decision. In fact, we actually spoke to him. It must have been around the time of Danny Roll's appointment, or shortly after. He was in Glasgow for a wee period after that. I think it was the Roma game actually, when ironically all kind of hell broke loose that night in terms of banners and chants against Thelwell and Stewart. But he came into the press room before it, just as a wee kind of, just to kind of meet people and say hello. But I remember kind of saying to him, no, he was travelling back the next day. I remember saying, when you plan to come back, and he kind of jokes, you know, I'm not going to tell you guys, no, because it becomes kind of news, and we kind of laughed about it. But I got the impression he didn't plan to be back probably this soon. So the fact that, you know, a big decision's been made, or has to be made, and he has made that journey to come back and show face and as I say, speak publicly. I think he went on to Sky in that yesterday. So no, I admire him for that. And you're right, I think Celtic fans will probably be looking on enviously, thinking we wouldn't mind a bit of that ourselves. But see, just in terms of the manager, Jack, I'm not saying it's going to, no, Wilfred Nancy come in is going to end anything. But I think the last thing they'll need as a club is if Nancy came in and results were a bit ropey initially, and it didn't go well for the start. I think if he comes in and hits the ground running, the team continue to win, catch hearts, go top of the league. That to me is the only thing that's going to kind of
release the pressure valve.
Yeah, 100%. It's the only thing that's going to soften it in any way.
I'm still not sure it's going to be enough, Scott. You will see that. Just before I go and we go to the kind of chat earlier with Craig and Michael. Just one other bit of, I think, really significant, important football news domestically today, Scott. Massive plus for Hearts. Lawrence Shankland has had I think it was a calf injury that he picked up slipping an AstroTurf ahead of the trip to Aberdeen at the weekend. Shankland and Stuart Finlay have both come through scans, and I think are both back at training ahead of a game against Motherwell this weekend. That's huge, because I think a lot of people would have looked at the performance at Pittodrie and just wondered how significant it was that, along with Shankland missing it, Benny Beringme being out, and Craig Halkett, is this squad strong enough to sustain a title challenge? So if there are doubts over that, they'll be absolutely thrilled to have Shankland back, and Finlay, who had to come off in the second half, I think it was, probably looking like being fit again for the weekend.
It's massive for them, because you're right, the game at Pittodrie, it was evident that they were missing that spine of the team. I thought Halkett's been outstanding this season. Beringme alongside Devlin in the middle of the park have been crucial for them as well. They've missed Beringme the last couple of weeks. And ultimately in that Aberdeen game, they weren't clinical enough. They lacked a cutting edge up front. You think Kabore's chance near the end, you've got to think Lawrence Shankland would have taken that. I know that's easy to say, but
he kind of almost ran out of ideas a little bit, didn't he, as the game went on as well, Scott? It was just a flat performance.
Aye, you're right, but there was chances in the game for them in the second half in particular, and they just didn't have enough kind of, as I say, that kind of clinical, killer instinct up front that Shankland might have provided for them. So, listen, he's their captain. I know they've got a few kind of leaders in there, but he's a captain, he's a talisman, he's a focal point, whatever you want to call it. And given the last couple of results that they've had, the next game becomes really important to them, and it's a tough one. So they'll be, Derek McInnes will be desperate to get his best players back, and Shankland obviously tops that list.
Right, listen, comments are flying in as usual. We'll address this one, Scott. The Daily Record was giving Kavanagh unwarranted credit. Surely he should have binned at least one of them months ago. He's too late with the decisions and missed Gerrard and Weir. Kavanagh is the flop. I don't think that, at any point I've said, or the Daily Record has said, that Kavanagh shouldn't have acted more quickly than he has. But what I would qualify all of that by saying I think it's still unusually quick, 6 months in, for a guy that's new to the environment to make massive judgment calls like this. That's where I think he gets the credit. Do I think he could have done it weeks ago? Yes. Did I not just say earlier, perhaps if he'd done it at the time of interviewing Steven Gerrard and Kevin Muscat, they might have a very different manager right now as well. So I think that is curious. I do think he could have acted quickly or more quickly, but I still think for a new owner to come in, assess the situation, make the big calls, and there has been big calls, getting rid of Russell Martin, um, replacing him with Danny Rall, now getting rid of his sporting director and his CEO. These are big calls, and he's not hanging about making them. I think he's probably get in quick enough to nip it in the bud, even if it was obvious to some others, ourselves included, perhaps, that this was probably something that Rangers could have been done with addressing,
Yeah,
a lot earlier than they finally did.
Jack, there's no getting away from it. No, new owners coming into a club, and within 6 months, they've had to appoint a
They're having to
manager.
change the command centre. Yeah,
They've had to sack a manager, sack a CEO, sack a sporting director.
means they've got a lot wrong.
Yeah, effectively, it's an admission. It's holding your hands up and saying, right, we've got this badly wrong. But as you say, no, in life, we all make mistakes. But the crucial thing is, owning up to them, putting your hands up, admitting to it early, making the change early, because he could have let it. He could have let it go on. As I say, Kevin Fell was allowed to bring a lot of guys in. I think it was only 36, 37 days until the transfer window opens up. Again, that would have been preying on Kavanagh's mind, because it might be a crucial window for them if they're going to.
Praying his mind, he'd be coming out in a cold sweat.
Well, especially, I know you've almost kind of written off any prospect of a title challenge, but if they do have any kind of ambitions to try and mount a challenge, then January becomes crucial for them. And listen, January shouldn't have been vital for them. You think of what they spent in the summer and the amount of players they brought in. January should have been a case of just topping up or tinkering and one or two changes. Instead, it feels like there's going to have to be quite a few ins and outs. If they want to progress and properly strengthen the squad, then there's going to be a bit of activity. And I think they've kind of admitted they will be active in January. So all of that would have been in Kavanagh's mind. But as you say, I think he deserves a bit of credit for making the decision when he has. We've both said that it probably comes a bit. It should have been done earlier, but they've got there in the end.
Right. Let's go to Rotterdam, Scott. Before we do that, how do you fancy Celtic's chances on the pitch Thursday night? Because listen, it's not been a great start to the Europa League campaign, but they have posted 4 points on the board, which is 4 points more than Rangers. They go into this game against Feyenoord, who aren't pulling up trees. They're below Celtic in the table just now. Is it possible to fancy Celtic's chances on the road in the Europa League, or is this another long night for Martin?
I think it's difficult to fancy their chances, Jacko. Especially when you think of that Michelin game, the last away game they had in the Europa League. I know Feyenoord aren't the team they were a couple of years ago when I was in Rotterdam with Mick. Brendan Rodgers' team lost, I think, Celtic two red cards that night for memory serves me. Was it Lagerbielke and Odin Holm get sent off? It was a tough night for them. Feyenoord a really good team that night. Again, from memory, I think guys like Reinders and Paschal have moved on to like Man City and Marseille. They had a really good side. I think Arne Slot might have been manager that night for.
I think it was Scott.
It's a different team, a different club in a way. You find it with a lot of the Dutch teams. They obviously build teams, but they can't hold on to their best players. They eventually lose them, and then they have a couple of years of trying to rebuild it again. It feels like Feyenoord are maybe in that stage at the moment. They've lost their last couple of games in the league. Bad defeats, I think, to Nijmegen and Go Ahead. They've lost to Braga already in the Europa League, who obviously Rangers playing Thursday night and Celtic have already lost to. So they're not in great form, but we've both been to Rotterdam. It's a tough place to go, that stadium. Big atmosphere. They'll be right up for it. And as I say, just in terms of where Celtic are at the minute, even the performance at the weekend against St Mirren was pretty flat, even though obviously Callum McGregor gets him out of jail at the end with a great goal. Just going with the last European performance, I find it hard to be positive about Celtic's chances.
Okay, Scott, well, let's catch up with what Craig and Michael said earlier, shortly after arriving in Rotterdam. They're there, obviously, ahead of tomorrow's press conferences and the game on Thursday night. Good evening, weary travellers. Michael Gannon and Craig Swan. You join us from Rotterdam. Thanks very much for jumping on. Guys, see, before we start, more and more jungle drums about the arrival of Wilfred Nongsi in Glasgow. Mick, I read your piece last night, quite interesting. You were suggesting that he could have his boots in the ground ahead of the weekend and be around at Easter Road, if not in the dugout, then in the stand for the game against Hibs on Sunday.
Well, listen, that is a distinct possibility at this point in time. This has been crawling very, very slowly. I don't want to say it, but I was telling you this 10 days ago. This was done.
You were.
Literally 10 days ago, it was pretty much done and dusted. I mean, once the talks went with Nonsi and Celtic, it was pretty much sorted. And I think the Commerce crew did not want to lose Wilfred Nonsi. They've offered a new contract in the meantime. They've been trying to keep him. They've been playing hardball when it comes to the compensation as well. And the factor in his fact, he wants to bring 3 or 4 of his staff as well. So there's been 3 or 4 guys to organise at the same time. So it has taken a bit of time. It was like a week of kind of talks. I think that's pretty much now done and dusted, waiting for the I's to be dotted and the T's to be crossed. And it's a case now of coordinating when to kind of get it announced and get it over the line. I think he would quite like to go across and see a game. I think he was actually hoping to be at the Saman game at the weekend last weekend. From what I gather, he was hoping to be actually at that game, or at least seeing the game. I think I watched it by now, obviously, but he was hoping to be there. Didn't quite work out because of the things going on behind the scenes. So all going well, he'll get himself across and get into to see that game. The view is starting on the Monday. But it's pretty much just all there now. It's the case of we get the big fanfare arrival.
Yeah, Swanee, should Celtic fans be concerned about this appointment or excited by it?
Well, depends what camp you're in, Keith. We've spoken about it, that of course it's a gamble. All managerial appointments are a gamble. You look at his CV that he's gathered from Montreal and Columbus, and obviously with a coaching background, you have to say it's a gamble. But there's also a side of the Celtic support who will be correctly excited by it, because they're looking for Celtic to become progressive in Europe and maybe go another way about things. And you know, you want one of these young coaches to bring it forward. So the guy seems to be very highly recommended. He seems to be very highly touted. He seems to be well thought of. Listen, of course, we've spoken about it long and loud. Being a football manager in Glasgow is completely different to just being a football coach.
It's not for everybody.
We all know that. You know, we've spoken about it on here before. There are aspects to the job which go beyond football, which can make it tricky. You know, some of the things you have to deal with away from the football, some of the things, the pressure that's upon you. So that's going to be all new for him. So from that point of view, of course, it's a gamble. He doesn't have any experience of dealing with that type of thing. But if Celtic want to go in another direction and they want to move in another way, then this is an exciting way to go about it. So you have to keep an open mind. I know there's been a lot of comparisons with Ange Postecoglou. I don't think that's correct at all, because I think Ange Postecoglou had a much bigger body of work. He'd been at World Cups, he'd done things, he had a lot more experience. So I don't think you can say it's the same as that. But I think in all of these situations, people should try and be optimistic and be excited rather than worried. But are you asking me if it's a gamble? Of course it's a gamble.
This is the city where the managers can get criticised for what they wear on their feet and what they wear their tie or not.
Yeah.
This is how This is Brendan Rodgers get a hard time for not wearing a tie at the start of the season.
Gordon Strachan told us what it's like when you go and put petrol on your car.
There's the managers getting chased for not wearing a suit and all that stuff. This is not a usual working environment in terms of football.
No, it's not, Mick, but he comes in at a particularly difficult time and a difficult, kind of delicate moment with the relationship or the lack thereof between the supporters and the board. Celtic crying out for unity. Does this appointment, does it give off a unity vibe to you? Do you think that all of a sudden people are going to get in line here, or are we just at the start of something with this internal sort of civil war?
Listen, I don't think Kofi Annan can achieve unity at the moment between Celtic fans and the board, but at least Wilfred Nonsi is not associated with any of this. He's going in kind of fresh. He won't be kind of tainted by any kind of previous goings on, so it should be a kind of fresh start for everyone. I think Celtic fans, most of them will have learned from the Ange kind of jumping to conclusions situation.
Yeah.
We'll give them a bit of time. Like you say, see if this had been in June, I think it would be much less of a gamble. I think it'd be a bold, almost kind of impressive kind of move in June. To get innovative, yeah. Whereas Passionate now, when he's got a cup final on the horizon, the league is well and truly on. There's a January window coming up. It's a bit as tough as it gets. But listen, fair play to the guy. He's willing to take on that challenge. He knows he's not coming in completely blind. He's not coming in thinking it's going to be all sunshine and roses. He knows that it's a tough environment, but he's backing himself to go and do it. So I think it's quite an interesting one. I mean, it could be sink or swim stuff, but it could work out really well for Celtic. And as you know, results on the pitch tends to kind of take away a lot of the angst and anger off it as well. Because I think
can dampen things down.
Listen, I think that Celtic, some Celtic fans and the Celtic board have been too guilty of being getting ratcheting this argument up at each level. They're getting wrapped up in this kind of online kind of bubble as well. The vast majority of folk want to go to the game and watch their team. They want to moan about, by the way, they'll moan about signings, they'll moan about sackings, they'll moan about results, but that's as bad as it gets. Whereas the kind of the online machine that's manifested into these protests and all the rest of it is getting met with fire from the board who are reading this stuff and seeing this stuff, and they're both ratcheting up each level, and you think, you all need to take a step back here. And
is incredible. I mean, these are experienced people that you think you've been in this movie before. Why have you allowed it to get so far out of hand this time? Now, before I move on to tomorrow night's game, which is obviously why you're there, the battle lines have been redrawn again over the last couple of days. There's been statements getting put out. Fans are becoming an even more entrenched position. Where do you think this ends? And this difficult question, but in terms of where Peter Lawwell is right now as chairman, Michael Nicholson, they're not past the maximum point of danger yet, as far as I can see.
I don't think it will, Keith. I don't think it will end until one of them ends up not having a job. There are certain people within the support who will not be satisfied until those guys aren't there anymore. Until
heads have rolled.
And that's that. We all know the background. People can sack the board as much as they want. It's not going to make any difference because you can't. The board can't be sacked. That's not how it works. It's not how the situation is.
No.
But I think the only thing that will offer any sort of appeasement, unfortunately, is a couple of people to leave. I think that's the only way that will come an end. I know what Mick's talking about results and all that will help appease. You would like to hope, for the sake of the squad and for Wilfred Nancy, that it will be separated. That the fans will come in, be really supportive and boisterous in the stadium and support the team and support the new manager, but then whatever they want to do elsewhere outside the ground before and after games and things like that, well, fine. They need to try and find a way to separate it if they're going to help the new manager, because Martin O'Neill spoke about it on Saturday night. Michael and I were both there in Paisley. The life was sucked out of the... I'm not saying...
Listen, Swanee, I know what you're saying, but these things cross-contaminate. There's no way. I don't think you can put the team into a bubble and say you won't be affected by this. They will be.
But is try and keep the support positive for the team during games as much
around the team.
And that's what I'm trying to say.
Around the team, I think it's taking an impact. But I tell you what,
I don't think it will happen, by the way, Keith. I don't think that's possible.
No, but you know what? A win on Thursday night. A win on Thursday night could, and change the mood music a little bit.
No, I think it's gone beyond that, Keith. In terms of the board stuff, I think it's gone beyond. We spoke about this a month ago. 2 or 3 results ain't going to change how people are feeling now. It's gone too far. In my view.
Regardless of that, guys, not got a lot of time. With regards to tomorrow night's game, Thursday night's game, are you in confident mood for Celtic, or is this feeling like it could be another long Europa League night?
I don't think you can be confident for Celtic after what we've seen.
No, you can't.
In the last European campaign.
It's Celtic away in Europe. I mean, hen's teeth results. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's hard to kind of see anything but the usual kind of encouraging start, then goals piling in on quick on mass, and then a slight recovery, then more goals piling in.
Feyenoord have underperformed.
They've been poor this
as
season.
Well in the Europa League. They're actually beneath Celtic in the table at the moment. I think 3 points.
So they need the win. That's not a good thing.
They're struggling and lost 4-2 at home in the league on Sunday. So things aren't, whereas Celtic went to Midtjylland, and Midtjylland are flying at the top of the Europa League. Everyone's buzzing. It's different with Feyenoord, but as Michael says, Celtic away from home in Europe, you can't be. Celtic fans can be nothing more than hopeful. None of them can be confident, not in what we've seen so far.
Well, boys, listen, we'll catch up again tomorrow. I know you've got Feyenoord presser and the Celtic presser later on. So until then, we'll see you tomorrow night in Hotline Live. Thanks for joining us.
All the best, Keith.
Catch you later.
Cheers, guys. Craig Swan and Michael Gannon. I saw a comment there from Rebel coming up. Rebel's a regular viewer, regular commentator. I think she said, Scott, that tell Mick the beer's really good in Rotterdam. That's the one bit of useless advice that we can take away for that, Rebel. I'm sorry. We don't need to tell Mick that the beer's good in Rotterdam. He'll probably be going Frank the Tank mode tonight.
I've had past experience in Rotterdam with Mick. He certainly knows the price of the beer, don't you? Don't worry about that.
He knows his way to the ski hut, doesn't he? That's the worry.
Certainly does.
Yeah, for the uninitiated, the ski hut is. I've never been to it, obviously, on these trips, but I'm told it's a lively arena, Scott.
I don't know who will be leading who Australia, whether it's Mick or Swanee. It's hard to
Difficult to call. Difficult to call. Scott, we'll go back to because I wanted to come back to what we were discussing earlier. You've written a piece today that I read, very interesting. But you've actually attributed the downfall of Kevin Thelwell at Rangers and Patrick Stewart directly to Danny Raw. You believe that he's got inside this thing and he's influenced it? Silent killer.
I think. Listen, you're maybe being a wee bit strong. I need to emphasise. I'm not saying Danny Raw was literally get two guys the sack. That's a bit.
That's how it read to me.
I've already had some comments like that directed my way, which I've had to kind of try and fend off. That wasn't entirely my intention. But listen, I do think he's had an influence on it. I mean, I'd be lying if I said
the traffic light system is interesting.
Look, we spoke earlier on saying it's only a matter of weeks ago that Andrew Kavanagh was backing Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart. So my question is, what's changed in the space of 5 weeks? No, 4 or 5 weeks. The only thing I can see that has happened in that time, significant in that time, is the fact that Danny Rowe has compiled a dossier, which is basically his assessment of the current squad at Rangers, and he submitted it to the board and Kevin Thelwell, obviously ahead of the January window. So I just think, is it really a coincidence that no long after that's landed on Andrew Kavanagh's desk, that suddenly the sporting director and the chief exec lose their job? I might be miles off it, but that's the only thing I can see that's really changed in that short space of time. I think Danny Rowe has impressed everyone. He's impressed us with how he's been in terms of the results he's got, at least domestically. I'm sure he will have impressed the owners. I think I'm pretty certain in saying that he's impressed the players and the staff that are already there.
Well, Kavanagh gave him a right few name checks the other day, didn't he?
He did. I think they'll have been impressed with him, and I'm just so intrigued. I mean, when Danny Rowe mentioned this dossier some weeks ago, it almost kind of went under the radar a wee bit. It kind of casually...
Careful with the phraseology.
In one of his press conferences. It stuck in my mind that I was intrigued by it, because it just felt a bit different. A manager so soon into a job compiling this thing and then presenting it to the board. I just thought it was really interesting. So,
and it's a traffic light system, as you explained, Scott, whereby clearly he's went through the squad, went through the new signings, said this one's a red light, never going to make it. These guys are on amber. We don't know yet. Too early to decide one way or the other. Jury's out. These guys have got green lights. They've got a significant contribution still to make. That's the way he seems to have coded and selected his way through the whole squad.
And I don't know about you, but I thought for a manager that was really honest, quite revealing, quite open. I don't remember many managers kind of talking about stuff like that before coming into a new job, being so kind of brutal in that assessment. Essentially saying guys with a red light, you
can get them out as quickly as possible, please.
Pretty much. So, listen, I don't know. I just think, as I say, it feels like too much a coincidence that these big decisions have been made and they've coincided with the timing of Danny Rowe submitting this dossier. And it's going to be really interesting now, as I say, he's submitted this ahead of the January window. The sporting director's now gone. I would assume that Danny Rowe will have a big influence on who goes in and out at Rangers in January. I think he'll know what the squad needs. He'll know what he wants. I think, and again, you're only surmising, but I would think he would want guys that he knows. I don't think he would be entirely comfortable with just getting handed players by the recruitment team and told to work, because if he submitted this dossier and there's a lot of red lights in there, then that would suggest that obviously the summer window wasn't great. So I think he's going to have a big influence. I think he's going to have a big influence at Rangers going forward, obviously, because I just think he's that type of manager. I think he'll want to be all over a lot of different aspects. But certainly in January, off the back of this report, I think he's going to have a big say in who comes in and who goes out.
Well, see, that's the point. Is it all a little bit too little, too late in terms of Rangers trying to survive in this Europa League campaign, Scott? I mean, they're playing Thursday night against Braga. They're sitting 36th out of 36 teams, which is embarrassing. On the back of 4 straight wallopings. Should they just consign this whole campaign to the dustbin, or is it not too late? Do you think Danny Rowe can still get the result on Thursday night, which would keep them alive, keep them in with a chance of qualification?
I think it'll be a tough night for them Thursday. I think Braga are a decent outfit. They proved that at Celtic Park earlier on in the season.
Yeah, Rangers, they look good at Celtic Park.
Rangers have struggled in Europe. I think just a couple of guys. Braga have got Ricardo Horta, the captain. João Moutinho's there as well. I think he came off the bench at Celtic Park, really experienced. Rangers just don't have these. I don't think they've got that quality of player, which kind of tells you where Rangers are. So obviously, Rangers have got a really good recent record against Braga, and that's a tie or a game Rangers fans have come to expect to go and win in this competition. But this is where Rangers are at the minute. I don't think the campaign's salvageable in terms of trying to get through, but you touched on it there. I mean, 0 points, 36 out of 36. I think the key thing is just to try and get points on the board and avoid that embarrassment of finishing bottom of the Europa League. Danny Rowe's obviously built a wee bit of momentum in the league. We're getting the 4 wins, but the European games have almost been a distraction in the middle of all that. They almost kind of set you back a couple of steps before you can get into another league game. So it would be good for him if he could get a victory in Europe, just to keep that going, give everybody a wee bit of a boost. But the truth of the matter is, they're going to get knocked out. It's been a disastrous campaign for them. And like I've said for the beginning of the season, before a ball was kicked, the league should have been and should be Rangers' priority. To me, Europe should have been put in the back burner this season. Anyway, that's not to say you just give up a Europa League campaign, but it was such a bad start for them. It was always going that way anyway. But I genuinely think, the Braga game, as I say, they don't want to get embarrassed. They want to get a couple of points on the board. But the truth is, the big game for them really is Sunday at home to Falkirk, when they go and try and get a 5th league win in a row. Won't be easy against Falkirk. They're banging for them. But for Rangers just to keep moving in the right direction domestically, then I think Sunday's game's far more important.
Okay. Also on Thursday night, of course, let's not forget Aberdeen are in action against Noah of Armenia. 1 point from their 4 games, which at least means they're not sitting bottom of the Conference League, albeit they are in 33rd out of 36. Surely, Scott, that's 3 points banked for Scottish football, and a little bit of help, badly needed help towards the coefficient.
I was going to say, if we can't get coefficient points for this game, then we really ought to chuck it. Look, Aberdeen, they've been boosted, obviously, by the result at the weekend against Hearts. Again, Jimmy Tilleen, the man under pressure a couple of months ago, or weeks ago, he'll be trying to kind of build a wee bit of momentum again. And after the weekend result, this is almost a perfect European tie for them, surely. I mean, they should be going and beating.
They should be flying in it, shouldn't they?
They should be. And they should be beating this team, with all due respect. I know old cliche, there's no easy games in Europe now, Jacko, but this is probably about as easy as you'll get. No, at this kind of level. I think I'm right in saying Noah scraped by Lincoln Red Imps earlier in the season in Europe. So Aberdeen, with the players that, in all seriousness, the players Aberdeen have got, they should be going and winning this game at home quite comfortably, surely.
Fingers crossed. And before I leave you, or before we go tonight, Scott, you seen the news about Cristiano Ronaldo today?
I did. I just read it when you text me earlier on.
Yeah. So what was a 3-game ban for a red card for violent conduct has been reduced to a 2-game suspended sentence. He's already served 1 game of the ban. So incredibly, I mean, what a coincidence. That means that Cristiano Ronaldo will be free to play in Portugal's World Cup opener. Never ever saw that coming.
I was
I think
going
they
to
do
say,
the same for Grant Hanley.
but you've literally taken the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say, if that's Grant Hanley at Hampden, elbowing somebody, smashing somebody in the face, there's absolutely no way he's getting a suspended sentence. 'Cause I think is Ryan Porteous still suspended for getting sent off at the Euros?
He's been suspended for about 2 years now.
So a bit of favourable treatment, I think, for Cristiano there. Safe to say.
Astonishing. I wish we all get that kind of treatment, Scott. I think me and you seem to be getting the hard shift here. Hotline Live again. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Will I see you tomorrow?
You might see me tomorrow. Me and Andy will be at the Rangers pre-match against Braga press conference in the afternoon, so I'm sure you'll hear from us at some point. Right,
brilliant, mate. I'm sure I'll be begging you to come on the show. So until then, guys, thank you so much. The comments have been absolutely flying in tonight. Brilliant, really enjoyed them. And thanks very much for all that. Thanks very much for watching. Scott, thanks for joining. Thanks to Mick and Craig as well. And we'll see you all tomorrow, 6 p.m. kickoff.